Good idea. Thanks for the reminder.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Hello, Anne.
先生、こんにちは。
こんにちは。お久しぶりですね。
そうですね。
はい、元気にしてますか？あ、久しぶりです。
はい。
顔見知りと違うね。いいね。
Getting older.
なんか、師範のような。
そんなことないです。
ヒゲです。ダンはハゲだけです。
はい。
俺もちょっとハゲてきたよ。
はい。今、レコーディングだからダンもやめた方がいい。
I think with everyone coming in, I'm going to give it a few more minutes.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna mute us.
There. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Wanted to make sure my audio was working. Okay. Hi, Devin.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How
That's
are you
good.
doing?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Doing well.
Same here. Same here.
Take a bath.
All right, everyone. It's 2 o'clock right now, and I'm going to go ahead and start this meeting. I'm your facilitator, Devin Kunik, and just something I wanted to pick up on. If I could ask everyone to mute their audio at this time, that'd be great. And I'll go from there. All right. First, I would like to welcome everyone. Thank you for attending here, for taking your time to listen to us, to hear what's going on. The purpose for this feedback section is to find out what is unclear about the current plan, and to brainstorm solutions to certain areas that are still not yet developed possibly. There may be some things we have not fully figured out. And if you can pose your questions in the chat, Dan O'Brien will be monitoring our chat. And Karen Connor is here, who is our Director of Operations. Again, my name is Devin Kunik. I am the Special Education Coordinator and 504 Coordinator here and the facilitator for this. I want to thank everybody on behalf of VRA for filling out those surveys that the school has used for these task force. Your feedback has been valuable in our planning and during this process. Our hope is that in going through this roadmap, that we can help clarify some things and help vent out some of your concerns about the upcoming school year and address what is in this document. As we go through the roadmap, keep in mind, please, there are people participating in this session. Pay attention to your participation and allow others to the opportunity to share as well. All right, so I want to move on the point of clarification. Right now, we are going to go through a protocol to clarify any parts of the plan that are unclear. We will start with the section on health and screening, and then move on into curriculum and instruction. So health and screening. All students and staff will complete a health screening before entering the building or entering onto the bus to get their way to school, as is laid out in the roadmap. Do you guys have questions about that section?
I can see in the chat, one of the questions that came up is, does that mean temperature checks daily? Not necessarily at this time. What Paula Kofflin, who is our school nurse, is working closely with Minnesota Department of Health and the Schools Nursing Association, and temperature is actually like a secondary symptom. So the most important symptoms that we're looking for that are standalone are shortness of breath and coughing. And if you look at the roadmap to reopening, we lay out the health screening questions right there. So you are able to look through and see the questions that all staff members, all students, anybody who's entering the building is going to answer prior to coming into the building. That doesn't mean we won't do a temperature check, but temperature is, as it's a secondary symptom, it's temperature of 100.5 or greater in addition to one of the other symptoms. So it's not a standalone symptom. We are rolling out, we're working with silent dismissal. I'm sure most of you are familiar with silent dismissal. We were able to work with them to develop a health screening app that will be available for families to complete for each child prior to getting on the bus or entering the building in the morning. There'll be a quick run through of a symptom check, and then that information goes directly to Paula, and if there are symptoms that are present, there'll be information on that app directing you most likely to contact the school nurse, but with some next steps.
Thank you. Are there other questions in regards to the operations?
It says, so we are depending on the kids to give an accurate answer to the list of questions. We're depending on the parents and the students together to accurately report any symptoms that they have occurring. That's the most important way we can detect whether symptoms for COVID are present. The next question is, what safety precautions are there on the buses? In our roadmap to reopening, you'll find a section on transportation. We have a plan with Metropolitan Transportation Network, they're the company that provides our transportation, for disinfecting between routes and deep cleaning overnight and making sure the buses are sanitized. All students will be wearing masks if they're on the bus. Capacity on the buses will be limited to 50 students on a bus, so students will sit 2 to a seat. We're going to have seating assignments filling the bus from the back to the front, keeping families together in cohorts. We also will have, we do have infrared thermometers for every bus, should somebody have a symptom that might, in cooperation with a temperature mean that they should be evaluated further. I see the question, are the parents filling it out? I think that that's referring to the health screening. If you have young children, I would assume the parents are going to help fill that out for the young children. High school students probably are capable of completing the health screening themselves. And then, does ERA finalize learning scenarios in person, hybrid, or distance? Devin will speak to that a little bit when we get to the curriculum and instruction. And 15 or 50 kids. 50, that's 50. That is 2 to a seat. Next question, what happens if form filling is missed for the day? Is a student not allowed inside the school or building? The app that we are working to develop with silent dismissal actually has a reminder. So if you don't complete it by 7 o'clock in the morning, a reminder to complete that health screening is pushed out to the parent's cell phone number via text. If there isn't a health screening completed for a student, that information will also go to Paula Kofflin, who is our school nurse, so she will follow up and do screening in person with that child. How does health screening work on asymptomatic individuals? Well, asymptomatic means there's no symptoms at all. So the health screening, if you don't have symptoms, the health screening doesn't tell us if you have symptoms because you aren't displaying any. That's where the masks and the social distancing or physical distancing really comes into play. And that's why it's so important for everybody to be masked when they're in the building. Do we have an option for complete distance learning? Yes, we do have an option.
There's a sign up for that, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. If hybrid or impersonal, how does ERA ensure rest washroom cleanliness? If you look at, we have 2 documents that we have published out there. We have our roadmap to opening for this fall, and we also have our 2021 scenario planning guide. And that scenario planning guide was developed by Woodstone Consulting, which we hired. They're smarter than we are. They know facilities, they know social distancing, they know the best ways to sanitize and disinfect. So we worked with them to develop that planning scenario guide. If you look on page 10, it lays out in detail how things are going to be cleaned, how they're going to be sanitized, the chemicals that will be used for cleaning and sanitizing, and the intervals at which that sanitizing will be taking place. Inside the classroom, are there any plans to have dividers in front of desks to prevent droplets from coughing or sneezing? Yes, we actually have ordered plexiglass dividers that are for each student. I would expect in grades K through 5 that they'll be permanently adhered to their desks. Well, not permanently, but they'll stay in one place because those students don't move throughout the building very much. They are portable. They actually fold and have a handle so that students in grades 6 through 12 will be able to carry those with them, which reduces the need to sanitize those in between each classroom use. So each student will only use their own divider, which is means less commonly touched surfaces for our students, so it's a safer option. Will curriculum be available in packets for distance learning? That's something that we'll address later. What precautions are being taken with HVAC? If you look at that planning guide, for that scenario planning guide that I mentioned earlier, page 14 directly addresses what precautions will be taken with our HVAC system. And it's going to be different depending on the time of year because it has much to do with clean or fresh air intake And that really is dependent on the climate outside at that time. But we're working closely with Managed Services Incorporated is the company that takes care of our HVAC for us. So we have a tech that's on site daily.
Okay. Are there any other questions on operations and safety?
Is there an option to switch from in-person to distance and vice versa? Devin, do you want to address that when you're ready?
So, yeah, when we're talking about going from distance learning to vice versa, there in the roadmap, there's we talk about how, you know, when we sign up between August 7th and August 14th, you can choose between if you want to do distance learning, if you're not comfortable sending your kid back, if that's an option. Also, with distance learning or vice versa, if you're feeling uncomfortable, from my understanding, you know, there's a bi-quarterly chance for sign up to then go to distance learning to give the school time to transition, to get the schedule get going and everything in place for them.
I see we have a question about how about smaller kids who are not able to keep mask on for an entire day? The consultant that we worked with had a behavioral scientist that is part of the consulting firm, and we talked about that a little bit. One thing that they have suggested is mask breaks for students, you know, so and most likely those would take place outside, so they could go outside and remove their mask and get some time where they aren't wearing that mask. The consulting firm we worked with worked primarily with, over the summer, there weren't a lot of schools that were open, so they worked with daycare centers and summer camps. And they said that it was about a 2-week period of adjustment for the children to adjust to wearing masks. And most of them made the adjustment very, very well. So we do have plans in place to have students be able to take a little break without their mask on to make it easier for them during the day. Next question was, do students have recess time? They do have recess time. And the plan is to have recess in smaller cohorts, staggered in different places, outdoor spaces. So they'll be just with a small group of students, and they will not be required to wear a mask during recess. We will still encourage physical distancing, but they will be able to have a break from their masks during recess time. Sign up for distance in-person hybrid mode. Do you want to take that one, Devin?
Yep. So as it's stated in the roadmap to learning, you know, in the distance learning section, it says sign up. The opportunity to sign up for distance learning will begin on August 7th with a deadline of August 14th to allow the academy to plan for staffing. And then opportunities for switching from distance learning to in-person learning will be provided on a bi-quarterly basis. And if you want more details, it's all in that roadmap for learning. Kim, who's here? Are we waiting on an announcement from Governor Walz regarding what kind of learning plan will be in place? Yep, I will address that in just a few minutes. I'm gonna let us finish up on the operations side. We've got about 2 or 3 more minutes and we'll move on to curriculum. Kim, I'll get to that. So does anyone have any more operations or safety concerns? Not concerns, but questions?
Are we having plans for TEL? There will be plans for TEL. It will follow much the same as, you know, if we have a in-person or a hybrid model that will impact how TEL runs.
So Karen, you see the last question?
Yep.
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 Okay.
What contingency plans do you have in case distance learning signups exceed the 40% of student population as mentioned in the plan? That's why we have that sign up period, so that we can make sure that we're planning and staffing accordingly.
Okay. So I want to thank everyone that had to ask questions to that. Sorry, lost my place here. If you have any more clarification on health in the screening process, please feel free to post in the chat and we'll collect that and either email it out to you or directly email you a response to that if your question wasn't addressed. We will either do an FAQ and send that out or individually message you. At this point, I want to move on to the curriculum and instruction. We need to clarify kind of curriculum instruction. Please take time to write down, again, questions in the chat and we'll address those. So let me go through and talk about the three things that we're looking at right now. We're talking about a hybrid model, a distance learning model, and an in-person model. We also have to wait for Governor Walz to define what the state is going to do. But ERA has taken the time, create task force, your feedback, and developed models around that. So we're planning for all scenarios with the details being in this roadmap, along with getting feedback from you guys to better fine tune things. But yes, we still need to wait for Governor Walz. In person, what is in-person learning? In-person learning is basically the bread and butter of education and what Eagle Ridge is best known for. It is classical education, it's back in the building and learning. Face masks will be used, etc., and protocols will be followed. We will attempt the best at physical distancing. That's the new term we're using, is physical distancing, not social distancing. And we'll be back full time doing what we do best. If in-person isn't an option, we're looking at what's called a hybrid model. So if we're looking at a hybrid model, what I want to do is I want to take the definition of hybrid learning directly from the roadmap, which is where is going to be, you're going to find everything. So just to sum it up, according to the Minnesota Department of Education and Planning scenario, schools must limit overall number of people in school facilities on transportation vehicles to 50% occupancy, which we've covered, sufficient physical distancing of at least 6 feet, and schools must include plans to contactless pickup or delivery of meals in schools. Hybrid learning is commonly used to describe classes in which traditional face-to-face instruction has been replaced by distant learning activities. A hybrid class is designed to integrate face-to-face learning and distance learning activities so that they can build on one another instead of treating the online component as an add-on or a duplicate of what is taught in the classroom. During classroom instruction time, students can be engaged in authentic collaborative learning experiences. The distance learning components can include multimedia enhanced content, learning practices, and opportunities for ongoing discussion. So hybrid, what we're thinking about and what we've been talking about is that we're talking about having small groups of cohorts for a hybrid model. Hybrid model means that you'd have group A and group B. On the first week, group A would be in the building Monday through Thursday, and group B would be home, doing a form of hybrid learning at home. Next week, group A would be home, group B would be in the building. And then Fridays would be used to plan for next week as well as sanitize the building from door to door, ceiling to ceiling. That's the hybrid model, basically, in my understanding, is what we have right now. Distance learning, based upon the feedback we got, remember last time we did distance learning, they gave us 8 days. We've had a lot more time to plan and reinvent education in that sense. Distance learning is going to be a lot more synchronous. It's going to be a lot more of time with teacher, and I think more live video and working with teachers, as well as using a more synchronous platform. I think our tech task force is working on finding that learning management system, or an LMS, that is much more easily integrated within all the systems already built here in the school. So there's less things going back and forth all over the place.
And
So-
please note, sorry to interrupt you, Devin.
No, go for it.
Question says, will there be a difference in curriculum daily schedule for in-person versus distance learning students?
So if we've got kids distance learning versus kids in the building, is how I'm understanding that?
Yes.
I mean, things will need to be modified. Obviously, you can't do a biology lab at home that you can do in the building. So things will need to be modified, but I do think that we are better prepared, and more of the details of that can be found in the roadmap to learning. But if you have more specific questions, you can send those in. Question, do students have separate supply lists in case they opt for distance learning, or is there going to be a supplies list for that scenario? You know, I honestly don't know. That's a good question about a supplies list.
I can speak to that a little bit.
Okay, thanks, Karen.
That was a question that came up this morning as well. There may be a few items on their supply list. I know personal hand sanitizer, I think 2 bottles is on some of the supply list for our K-5 students. And that probably won't be necessary if you're doing distance learning for home. So I know that Ms. Milgren was going to look into it and modify the list to kind of highlight those items that will still be important to have for distance learning, and those items that will only be needed for in-person learning.
Next question is, for distance learning, will students be required to be in uniform during the Zoom meetings? I know that the current policy doesn't address that, but I think they're talking about it. Am I correct, Karen?
Yep, that's correct. The principals are currently working on what's going to be required of students for distance learning during Zoom meetings. So it would be during, the synchronous learning while it's that live learning over Zoom or a learning management system.
Okay. Okay. Hybrid learning, what will that look like when they're at home? That's the question. Hybrid model. So we are going to be using a learning management system, which is going to be, as we got back more feedback from the families in the surveys this summer, families are wanting more interaction with their teachers. They're wanting to see the teachers and be parts of classroom. The hybrid model will include more of that, where we'll try to create a much more classical education feel while using up-to-date technology. Weekly tests conducted for students. I think testing, I'm going to go with, I don't completely know the answer in the sense of it depends on what the teachers try to use the systems for.
So which questions do I need to be noting there, Devin?
How would be weekly tests conducted for students?
Thank you.
Is there an option for parents to choose options like hybrid versus distance learning? Is the combination of both or only one option? I know you can sign up in August, between August 7th and 14th. Karen, can you go between hybrid and distance? I think distance is only in the case when we can't do the hybrid.
Yeah, I believe you would be able to go between, if the governor says that we are hybrid, you still will have the option for distance learning.
Okay.
Devin, this is Joanna here. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. In the PDF that you sent, the virtual option or the hybrid option looked like alternate days for Group A and Group B. But when you gave the example today, you said a whole week for Group A, and then the following week would be Group B. Is that, so which option is it, I guess?
It's the week.
The week, okay.
Yep.
Thank
So
you.
the task force, based upon the research and kind of the journal articles about what is out there for hybrid models, is showing that more can get done when you're in building for a longer period of time versus the day-to-day, let alone the operation confusions of kids trying to, am I on the bus today, am I on the bus tomorrow? You know, that kind of concept. So we thought about our streamlined, better way to meet the kids' needs and show growth and learning together would be better.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. I have a new 6th grader who has chosen choir. If we choose distance learning, is choir an option for curriculum? Well, the full, Karen, isn't everything going to be hybrid available or distance available to all the classes?
Yeah, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet, but middle school and high school students will follow the same schedule that they've been given. I can't speak specifically to what each class will look like during the distance model portion of hybrid or distance learning.
Arthur asked the question, if any students wants to do distance learning in the fall, and is it possible to switch to a hybrid or in-person in the winter or next quarter? Again, like I said, it's in the roadmap to learning. There is a bi-quarterly kind of basic point to choose whether you want to change the model you're in. It also depends upon what the governor says on Thursday about what mode he's going to even allow for schools to do. So yes, I think that answers that. Will there be a virtual meet your teacher night this time? You know, I don't know at this moment.
We're still working on the plans for that. Some of it will be dependent on the model that we're using at the beginning of the school year. For hybrid and in-person, there are items, physical items that students need to actually have in hand, such as bus passes and those kinds of things, which it will be different if it's distance learning to begin the year. A lot of those items that you would typically pick up on Meet Your Teacher Night could be emailed. So we don't have a great answer for it yet because we're still in the planning stages. I'm working with both assistant principals to come up with a great way to do Meet Your Teacher Night.
If I may offer a suggestion for Meet the Teacher Night, at least at this time in my family, we're leaning towards either a hybrid or a distance learning. It would be nice if Meet the Teacher, whether it's a night or a day, to have that in person, to really have that connection with the student. Because I think that could be, again, it does put a lot of time on the teacher side, but it does help for that connection to take place, especially if students are doing a distance learning or a hybrid model. For them, meeting that teacher does have that emotional connection, and I think it would help. At least just a comment, and if you can consider that, that'd be great. And it could be outside, so now that we have good weather, hopefully it doesn't rain, but if it's outside and there's some time set aside for each student, even be it 5 or 10 minutes, but to have that connection would be really nice, or an offer, just an option available for parents to choose, that would also be really nice.
Thank you, Joanna. I'll bring that back to the leadership team as we're discussing it.
Thank you.
Swati asked, for distance learning, will there be more interaction with teacher like online group lessons rather than just assigned lessons? And again, I want to say thank you for filling out those surveys. Those were huge for us. And like I said earlier, You know, when we first did distance learning, we had 8 days to reinvent it, which was a massive undertaking. And I know it wasn't perfect. I think we would all agree it wasn't perfect. And, you know, the survey said it wasn't perfect, and that's fine. The thing we knew and we have built on is that our kids need time with teachers. Like, that's our job. Our job is to teach, and, you know, a computer screen can't do the teaching for us. And so we have designed and we're working on a more teacher interaction time with their students. Sorry, I lost my place here.
When will we know our kids' teacher's
Oh,
name?
thank you.
We have class lists built right now. We're waiting on the directive from the governor, because it might change, you know, how we schedule things a little bit. Also, what might influence that is how many students opt for distance learning too.
Mhm.
So hopefully soon. I know Ms. Milgren is, she has a plan in place, but we're just kind of waiting on that guidance from the governor. Operational question. Will refunds be issued for transportation charges if a student opts for distance learning and doesn't utilize bus transportation for a major portion of the year? As always, you have the first 10 days of the first 10 school days to cancel your transportation for a refund minus, I think it's a $15 administrative fee. So if you opt for distance learning and want to cancel transportation, you can certainly do that. If we are mandated to do distance learning, we will address transportation fees and we'll come up with a plan at that time.
Is there a cap on how many kids can do distance learning? You know, I honestly don't know that question. Karen, do you know that one?
I don't have an answer for that question either, but Dan
That's a really good question, Ryan.
can
We'll bring
write
that back to the
down
teams.
and we'll get an answer for you.
Yes. But thank you for that. Yeah, so just to clarify, Ryan asked that the document sent out, the roadmap, that distance learning option will be given based on medical reasons first, then preference, indicating to me that some requests it may be denied. Is there a cap to how many students can sign up for distance learning? Again, I said I'll take that question back to the task force. We'll come back to you with an answer.
Devin, which question were you just reading?
Just that last one by Ryan Haas.
Got it.
Okay, well, are there any other questions in regards to curriculum or operations?
I don't have a question, but just a comment. I think the documents that you had sent last week were really very thorough, very well written, and did a really great job. So thanks for that. Really appreciate the work that was put in getting that to us.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we really have to thank all of our parents for the feedback in the survey and our task force members. There were leaders and teachers and parents who worked really hard on putting that plan together. So it was a lot of people put a lot of work into it, and we want to thank all of them.
Okay. All right, so if there aren't more questions in those two areas, I'm just going to open it up to brainstorming. There are a few areas of operation that have yet to be decided. We've clearly spent a lot of time and a lot of effort, which we know is important because our families are important to us and so are our students, clearly. We would like suggestions on how to implement them. If you have questions, please post them in the chat. There's also, I think, Dan, can you post the hotline, the email hotline in the chat for everybody? So they have that as well. And all right, so if there are any brainstorming thoughts or questions or anything,
Has there been any thoughts on how parent-teacher conference is gonna look like this year?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't know. I would have to ask Karen, but I think that was one that we're still trying to work out the details on getting, people into the building, et cetera. I think that brings in a lot of questions.
I think it will also be dependent on the model
Hmm.
that we go to, if it's distance learning, or a hybrid learning. And two, things change. It's still a few months away. So I don't think we'll probably make a decision till after the school year starts.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right.
Oops. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Kim.
Hey, I have a quick question for you. I'm sorry, I was late for the meeting. I didn't notice the time. So if we are opting for a distance learning or like hybrid learning, do we need to stick with it for the complete year, for that school year?
No, as is stated in the roadmap to learning, there is a chance to change if the governor allows for it, depending on the situation. You can switch bi-quarterly.
Okay, that's good to know because I was like, they are eager to go to school and they wanted to do like, if it's okay to do a hybrid, yes, we want to go to school. That's what they say. They don't want to sit at home and do the learning and they want to go to school, but we all want to be safe. And at the same time, if things are not working and if we want to schedule like between distance and in-person, so like the hybrid, so we can schedule it, right? We can
Yes.
change it on the quarterly basis though.
Yeah, on the bi-quarterly basis, and then if you were late, just like I said earlier, the sign up, if you want to do either the hybrid model or distance learning model, is between August 7th and August 14th.
Are we gonna get a links in the email then about them, or is that already updated somewhere on the school website?
The link will be emailed to you.
Okay. And will there be any changes between the school supplies for the hybrid learning people from the distance learning, or it's gonna be the same thing?
Miss Melgren is actually looking at the lists because there will be a few things on the list if you're opting for distance learning and not in-person learning or hybrid. There's probably a few items that you won't need.
Okay, so will we be having the updated list then? Because I was waiting to order the school supplies too. So
Yes,
far,
she was checking. It was a question that came up this morning, so I don't know how far she's gotten into checking into it, and I don't know that there will be changes made to the supply list that you order, the school order list. I think we'll have to check with Jody Greer is the one who graciously organizes that every year, and I don't know if they can make changes to those now.
Okay, thank you. That's all I
Kim,
have.
you had a question?
I did. So you might have already addressed it and I just didn't hear. But
Totally
if
fine.
you are doing the hybrid model for families with multiple children in different grades, is that something where, they both could be a part of the A group? So, they're all at school at the same time and then home at the same time?
Yeah, Kim, that's a fantastic question. No, we have taken that into account, and our priority will be to pair family members because you're not the only family with multiple kids in the school.
Right,
And I can't imagine it's like, okay, 2 kids are going in and 1 kid's home today. Oh my God, like you need a break too. So yes, we will prioritize making sure the Madrid family is in the school all at the same time and then home at the same time.
Thank you. I appreciate you addressing that.
Any other questions?
The one about school classroom materials being available for distance learning kids. Yep, we're working on those plans to make sure that students that are distance learning have everything that they need.
One more question. I guess I didn't even think about it, but it sounds like that is exactly the option. you know, so there is like, if all the kids return to school, if that's what Governor Walz says, we can have full on school. I didn't realize that, you know, you did have a choice of whether it was, I want to do distance learning instead, or I want to do the hybrid learning. But that's what you're saying, correct? You can choose either the distance learning or the hybrid. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't know if you could do the hybrid one.
yeah,
if we're
you
in
would choose,
person.
but you could choose, if hybrid is the option, you can choose between hybrid or distance learning.
Okay.
if you are
Thank you.
comfortable. Okay.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to understand. You answered my question perfectly. Thank you. Got it.
Yep. Anybody, any other questions or anything? All right. Then I want to thank everybody for coming to this feedback session. We value all your questions. We're going to, this has been all recorded and will be posted. Karen, where's it being posted?
I think it will go on the website. Francesca Castro is our communications manager, and she's doing a great job. There she is on the screen. Francesca, do you have a plan as to where this will be posted?
Yes, so under the news section currently on the website, there is the 2020-2021 Roadmap to Reopening tab, and that has the 2 documents on it, and all of the recorded sessions will be put there after they take place.
Thank you, Francesca.
Thank you, Francesca. So again, this will be posted up and you can watch this from the website. If you have questions that you didn't think of, there is also the hotline, which is covid-19@eagleridgeacademy.org. And there will be other sessions. All right, thank you so much, everyone. I hope to see you soon in the fall.
Thank you.
And I did just repost the email in the chat for anybody that needs to get it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Nice job, Karen. Really well done.
Thanks, Ann. Okay.